R/AITA sister destroyed my dream job, so I sued her for everything. R/AITA sister destroyed my dream job, so I sued her for everything. The call came on a Tuesday morning at 7:43 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was staring at my phone, counting down the hours until I'd finally walked through the doors of Nexus Technologies as their newest senior software engineer. 3 days. I had 3 days left at my soul-crushing job at a dingy startup where my boss treated me like I was lucky to breathe the same air as him. "This is Marcus Chin from Nexus HR," the voice said, and my stomach immediately dropped. "HR doesn't call with good news the week you're supposed to start. We need to discuss some concerning information that's come to our attention regarding your background. Can you come in today?" I managed to stammer out a yes, my hands already shaking. This was it. After 6 years of grinding through terrible jobs, underpaid positions, and companies that folded faster than I could update my LinkedIn, I'd finally made it. Nexus was everything I'd dreamed of: cutting-edge projects, incredible benefits, and a salary that would let me move out of my studio apartment that smelled perpetually of the fish restaurant downstairs. 2 hours later, I sat across from Marcus and another HR representative whose name I never caught because my brain was too busy short-circuiting. The folder between us looked thick. Too thick for someone with my squeaky clean record. "We received some troubling information from someone claiming to be your sister," Marcus began, and my blood turned to ice. "She contacted us yesterday expressing concerns about your mental stability and alleged criminal history." My sister. Of course it was Sarah. She provided very specific details about incidents of workplace harassment at your previous jobs, claims of violent outbursts, and mentioned something about pending charges that weren't showing up in our standard background check. Marcus's voice was professional, but I could see the discomfort in his eyes. She seemed genuinely concerned about workplace safety. The room started spinning. None of that is true. I've never been arrested. I've never harassed anyone. You can check with all my previous employers. We did reach out to a few, the other woman finally spoke. While we couldn't verify the specific incidents your sister mentioned, some responses were concerning enough that we feel we need to reevaluate your candidacy. I knew exactly what that meant. Sarah had been thorough. She'd probably crafted lies just believable enough to plant seeds of doubt, just specific enough to sound credible. She'd always been the smart one, the manipulative one, the golden child who couldn't stand seeing me succeed. "We'll be conducting a more extensive background investigation," Marcus continued. "In the meantime, we'll need to postpone your start date indefinitely." Postpone. Corporate speak for, "You're done." I sat in my car in their parking lot for 20 minutes afterward, staring at the building where I should have been starting my new life in 3 days. My phone buzzed with a text from my current boss asking if I was planning to show up today, since I'd already given my notice. The apartment I put a deposit on. The car payment I could finally afford. The future I'd been planning, it was all crumbling because my sister couldn't stand to see me happy. That's when I made the decision that would either save my life or destroy what was left of my family forever. I was going to sue Sarah for everything she had. The drive home felt like a funeral procession. Every red light was another minute to think about how spectacularly my life had just imploded. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, I'd already started making lists in my head: damage control, evidence gathering, legal options. My phone rang as I climbed the stairs. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. The audacity was breathtaking. I let it ring through to voicemail, then immediately played it back. "Hey little brother, just wanted to check in and see how the new job prep is going. I know you've been so excited. Call me back when you get a chance. Love you." Her voice was sickeningly sweet, dripping with fake concern. She knew exactly what she'd done, and she was calling to watch me burn. I saved the voicemail, evidence of her timeline, her pretending not to know what had happened. Inside my apartment, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything I could remember from the HR meeting. Every word Marcus had said, every detail Sarah had allegedly provided. Then I started digging through my own records, performance reviews, reference letters, anything that could counter her lies. My phone buzzed with texts from Sarah over the next hour. "Did I miss your call? Just wanted to hear about your last few days at the old job. Mom asked me to check on you. You know how she worries. Seriously, call me back. You're being weird." Each message felt like salt in the wound. She was enjoying this. Then my current boss called. "Listen, I know you gave notice, but we need to talk. Someone called here asking questions about you. Said they were from Nexus HR, but also mentioned they were gathering information for potential legal proceedings." What the hell is going on? Legal proceedings? Sarah hadn't just torpedoed my job offer, she'd made it sound like I was some kind of criminal facing charges. My boss, Dave, had always been decent to me despite running his company like a chaotic hellscape. But even I could hear the suspicion creeping into his voice. "Dave, I can explain everything. Can we meet tomorrow morning?" "Yeah, we better. And maybe you should stick around a bit longer until you get this, whatever this is, sorted out." After he hung up, I realized the full scope of what Sarah had done. She hadn't just cost me the Nexus job, she potentially poisoned the well with my current employer too. What if other companies in my network started getting calls? What if this followed me everywhere? I spent the next 3 hours researching defamation attorneys. The consultation fees alone were going to drain my savings, but I couldn't see any other option. Sarah had weaponized her respectability. She was a nurse practitioner, married to a lawyer, lived in the suburbs with her perfect kids. When she called companies expressing concern about her troubled little brother, people believed her. The irony wasn't lost on me. Growing up, I'd been the responsible one. I'd helped Sarah through college, lent her money when her husband was between jobs, babysat her kids countless times. I'd celebrated every promotion, every achievement, every milestone in her perfect life. And she'd repaid me by systematically destroying the one good thing that had ever happened to my career. At 11 p.m., I finally called her back. "There you are. I was getting worried. How was your day?" "Cut the act, Sarah. I know what you did." The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds before her voice changed completely. The sweetness vanished, replaced by something cold and sharp. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Nexus Technologies. The HR call. The lies about criminal charges and workplace harassment. Ring any bells? Prove it. 2 words. That's all she said before hanging up on me. But those 2 words told me everything I needed to know about the fight ahead. The next morning brought 3 more voicemails that made my blood run cold. The first was from Jennifer Walsh, a recruiter I'd worked with 6 months ago. Hi, this is awkward, but I got a strange call yesterday about you. Someone claiming to be family, very concerned about your stability. I didn't give out any information, but thought you should know. Call me. The second was from my college roommate who worked at a competing tech firm. Dude, what's going on? Someone called our HR asking about you, mentioned you'd applied here before. They were fishing for information about why we didn't hire you. This is seriously weird. The third made me sink into my kitchen chair. It was from Dr. Patricia Morrison, my former therapist from 3 years ago when I'd gone through a rough patch after my dad died. I received an unusual call from someone claiming to be conducting a background investigation. They had some very specific questions about our sessions and your mental health history. Of course, I disclosed nothing due to confidentiality, but I wanted you to know that someone is actively seeking this information. Please call me. Sarah wasn't just sabotaging one job opportunity. She was systematically carpet bombing my entire professional network, my personal history, even my medical records. The scope of her attack was breathtaking in its thoroughness. I called the defamation attorney's office the moment they opened at 9 a.m. Rebecca Martinez agreed to see me that afternoon for a consultation, but warned me that these cases were expensive and difficult to prove. Bring every piece of documentation you have, she'd said. Text messages, emails, voicemails, anything that establishes timeline and intent. While I gathered evidence, my phone rang again. This time it was my mom. Honey, Sarah called me last night. She's very worried about you. She said you're having some kind of breakdown and that you accused her of something terrible. The manipulation was masterful. Sarah had gotten ahead of the story, painting herself as the concerned sister dealing with her unstable brother's paranoid delusions. Mom, she sabotaged my job. She called my new company and lied about me having a criminal record. Sweetie, why would Sarah do something like that? She's always been so proud of you. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding. She admitted it. She says you've been acting erratic lately, and with all the stress of job changes. Maybe you should talk to someone. Even my own mother was buying Sarah's narrative. I could hear the doubt in her voice, the gentle tone people use when they think someone is having a mental health crisis. After hanging up, I realized Sarah's most insidious move yet. By claiming I was unstable, she'd created a scenario where any accusation I made against her would be dismissed as paranoid delusion. The more I insisted she'd sabotaged me, the crazier I'd sound. At 2 p.m., I sat across from Rebecca Martinez in her downtown office. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes that reminded me of a hawk sizing up prey. Tell me everything, she said, sliding a legal pad across her desk. I walked her through the timeline, played the voicemails, showed her the text messages. She took notes without expression, occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is definitely defamation, and potentially tortious interference with business relations. The systematic nature of her campaign works in your favor. But I need to be honest with you about what you're up against. She pulled out a calculator. Your sister is married to an attorney. They'll have resources and legal knowledge. A case like this, if we pursue it aggressively, could cost anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000. And that's if we win. If we lose, you could be liable for their attorney fees too. The number hit me like a physical blow. $50,000 I didn't have, to fight for a job I'd already lost. But here's the thing, Rebecca continued, her eyes hardening. Sometimes these cases aren't really about winning in court. Sometimes they're about making someone face consequences for their actions. What exactly does that mean? I asked, though something in Rebecca's tone told me I wasn't going to like the answer. It means we have leverage beyond just monetary damages. Your sister is a nurse practitioner, correct? Healthcare professionals are held to strict ethical standards. Filing a formal complaint with the state licensing board about her conduct could put her entire career at risk. The weight of that possibility settled over me like a heavy blanket. Going after Sarah's nursing license would be nuclear, the kind of move that would obliterate any chance of our family ever recovering from this. Think about it over the weekend, Rebecca said, sliding her retainer agreement across the desk. But don't think too long. The longer we wait, the harder it becomes to prove damages and gather evidence. Walking back to my car, I felt like I was balancing on the edge of a cliff. Behind me was everything I'd worked for, destroyed. Ahead was a legal war that could bankrupt me and tear apart what was left of my family. But staying still wasn't an option, Sarah had made sure of that. My phone rang as I reached the parking garage. Unknown number. Is this the person who's been harassing the Morrison family? I stopped dead. Excuse me. This is Detective Rodriguez with Metro PD. We've received a complaint about threatening behavior toward a Sarah Morrison and her children. I need you to come in for questioning. The world tilted sideways. There's been a mistake. I haven't threatened anyone. According to the complaint, you've been making disturbing phone calls and showing up at their house. Mrs. Morrison has young children and feels unsafe. Are you willing to come in voluntarily, or do we need to do this the hard way? Sarah had called the police. She'd actually called the police and somehow convinced them I was stalking her. I'll come in, I managed to say. When? How about right now? The police station smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Detective Rodriguez was a tired-looking woman in her 50s who seemed genuinely puzzled by the situation. Walk me through your relationship with Mrs. Morrison, she said, pulling out a recorder. I explained everything, the job sabotage, the phone calls to my network, the family history. Rodriguez took notes, but her expression grew increasingly skeptical. So you're saying your sister, a healthcare professional with no criminal history, suddenly decided to destroy your career out of jealousy? When she put it like that, it sounded insane. Did you call her multiple times on Tuesday night? I called her back once. She'd been texting me all day. Rodriguez consulted her notes. Mrs. Morrison's phone records show 7 calls from your number between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Tuesday night. That was impossible. I'd called her once, we talked for maybe 3 minutes. That's not right. Check my phone records. We will. Did you drive by her house Wednesday morning? No. I was meeting with attorneys downtown all day. Interesting. Because her neighbor's security camera shows a vehicle matching your car's description parked across from their house around 10 a.m. The room started spinning again. Either Sarah was somehow manipulating evidence, or someone was actively helping her build a case against me. My first thought went to her husband Mark. He was a criminal defense attorney. He'd know exactly how to construct a harassment complaint. Detective, I think I need a lawyer. Rodriguez's expression hardened. That's your right. But let me be clear, if you're genuinely being framed, the best thing you can do is cooperate fully and let us sort out the truth. And if I'm not being framed, then you need to stay away from the Morrison family completely. No calls, no texts, no driving by their house, no contact through third parties. Violation of that warning could result in a restraining order and criminal charges. I walked out of the police station feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Sarah hadn't just sabotaged my job, she'd somehow convinced law enforcement that I was dangerous. The sophistication of her attack was terrifying. Back in my car, I called Rebecca Martinez again. We need to move faster than I thought, I told her. Sarah just involved the police. Rebecca's voice turned sharp when I explained the police situation. Don't say another word to anyone without me present. Can you be at my office in an hour? I thought you said to think about it over the weekend. That was before your sister escalated to filing false police reports. We're past the thinking stage now. The urgency in her tone sent ice through my veins. This wasn't just about a job anymore, Sarah was actively trying to destroy my freedom. I spent the drive back downtown replaying every interaction I'd had since Tuesday. 7 phone calls that I never made. A car that looked like mine at Sarah's house when I was across town. Either I was losing my mind, or someone was setting me up with frightening precision. Rebecca was waiting with a fresh legal pad and a grim expression. Tell me about your car. Make, model, color. Silver Honda Civic, 2019. Why? How many people have access to it? Just me. I live alone. Then a thought hit me like a sledgehammer. Wait. Sarah has a spare key. I gave it to her last year when I went out of town and asked her to check on my apartment. Rebecca's pen stopped moving. Did you ever get it back? I tried to remember, but that week was a blur of vacation planning and work deadlines. I'm not sure. I think she said she put it on my kitchen counter, but I never actually looked for it. We need to check your apartment right now. And then we're changing your locks. The drive to my place felt like a funeral march. Rebecca followed in her own car, and I kept checking my mirrors expecting to see police cruisers. The paranoia was eating me alive, exactly what Sarah wanted. My apartment looked untouched, but Rebecca moved through it like a crime scene investigator. She checked my phone charger, my laptop, even my trash can. Your phone, she said suddenly. Do you have cloud backup enabled? Yeah, everything syncs automatically. Why? If someone had access to your devices, they could potentially make calls that would show up on your phone records. Especially if they knew your passwords. Her expression darkened. Has your sister ever used your phone? Borrowed it, seen you enter your passcode? The memories came flooding back. Sarah using my phone when hers died during family dinners. Watching me unlock it dozens of times over the years. She'd even helped me set up the cloud backup system when I got this phone. She knows all my passwords, I admitted. We used to share streaming accounts, online shopping. Jesus, Rebecca, she could have access to everything. That's exactly what I was afraid of. Rebecca pulled out her own phone. I'm calling a digital forensics expert. If your sister has been impersonating you electronically, we need to document it before she covers her tracks. While Rebecca made calls, I searched my kitchen drawers for the spare car key. Nothing. I checked every possible place I might have put it. The key was gone, which meant Sarah could have driven my car to her own neighborhood, parked it where the security camera would catch it, then driven home in her own vehicle. The sophistication of her plan was breathtaking. She wasn't just lying about me, she was creating physical evidence to support her lies. The forensics guy can be here tomorrow morning, Rebecca said, hanging up. In the meantime, we're filing our own police report about identity theft and fraud. Beat her at her own game. Won't that just make me look more unstable? My word against hers. Not if we have evidence. And something tells me your sister got overconfident. People who commit elaborate schemes usually leave digital breadcrumbs. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop harassing my family or there will be consequences. Rebecca read it over my shoulder and smiled for the first time since I'd met her. Screenshot that, she said. Your sister just made her first mistake. What mistake? I asked, staring at the threatening text. She's contacting you directly after filing a police report claiming she's afraid of your harassment. Either she's genuinely terrified, or she's not terrified at all and is trying to manipulate you into doing something stupid. Rebecca pulled out a small recording device. From now on, every interaction gets documented. Every phone call, every text, every time someone mentions her name to you. My phone rang immediately. Sarah's number. Don't answer, Rebecca said sharply. Let it go to voicemail, but put it on speaker so I can hear. We waited. The voicemail notification popped up within seconds. I played it back, hands shaking. I know you're listening to this right now. Sarah's voice was different again, not sweet, not cold, but exhausted. Almost scared. I don't know what's happened to you, but you need help. The police told me about your lawyer, about the things you're planning to accuse me of. This isn't you. This isn't the brother I grew up with. She paused, and I could hear children's voices in the background. Emma keeps asking why Uncle doesn't come over anymore. I don't know what to tell her. I don't know what to tell any of them when you destroy our family over some job that you probably would have screwed up anyway. The line went quiet for a moment, then her voice came back harder. You always blamed everyone else when things didn't work out. College, your first job, Dad's death, every relationship that fell apart. It was never your fault, was it? Well, guess what, sometimes you're just not good enough. Sometimes you don't get the perfect life you think you deserve. The voicemail ended with a sharp click. I stared at my phone, feeling like I'd been slapped. Rebecca was scribbling notes furiously. Interesting, she murmured. Very interesting. Interesting how? She just basically admitted she thinks I deserve to lose the job. She also just admitted she knows about the lawyer, which means she's monitoring your activities somehow. And more importantly, she's trying to provoke you into an emotional response. Rebecca looked up from her notes. The question is, why now? What changed? Before I could answer, my phone rang again. This time it was my mom. Rebecca nodded permission, and I answered. Honey, I just got off the phone with Sarah. She's really scared. Mom's voice was thick with worry. She says you hired some kind of attack lawyer and you're planning to sue her. Over a misunderstanding. Mom, it wasn't a misunderstanding. She deliberately. She told me about the job situation. She was trying to help, sweetheart. She called them because she was worried about you starting somewhere new when you've been under so much stress. She thought maybe they should know to keep an eye on you, make sure you were settling in okay. The reframing was masterful. Sarah had convinced our mother that her sabotage was actually concern. That's not what happened, Mom. She told them I had a criminal record. She says she never said anything like that. She's wondering if maybe you misunderstood what the HR people told you. Mom's voice got gentler, more careful. Have you been sleeping? Eating regularly? You know stress can make us hear things differently sometimes. Rebecca was making frantic notes, circling words and drawing arrows. She scribbled something on a piece of paper and held it up. She's coaching your mother. I have to go, Mom. Wait, please. Sarah wants to meet with you. Just the two of you, somewhere public. She thinks if you could just talk through what really happened. Absolutely not, Rebecca said loudly enough for Mom to hear. Who was that? Is that the lawyer? Honey, please don't let some stranger tear apart our family over a miscommunication. After I hung up, Rebecca was pacing my small living room like a caged animal. Your sister is good, she said finally. Really good. She's not just attacking you, she's controlling the entire narrative. Making herself the victim, making you the unstable aggressor, making your family think she's trying to help. So what do we do? Rebecca stopped pacing and fixed me with a stare that made my stomach drop. We prove she's been impersonating you electronically. We prove she stole your car key. We prove she fabricated evidence for the police. And then we destroy her so completely that she never thinks about manipulating anyone again. The venom in her voice scared me almost as much as Sarah's machinations. What if we can't prove it? Then your sister wins, and you spend the next decade explaining to every potential employer why there are police reports about your harassment and mental instability floating around the internet. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number, meeting tomorrow. Riverside Park, noon. Come alone or everyone finds out what you're really like. Rebecca read it and smiled that sharp smile again. Perfect. She's about to walk right into our trap. I stared at the text message, my hands trembling. What trap? You want me to meet with her? Absolutely not. But we're going to make her think you will. Rebecca pulled out her laptop. The forensics expert is coming at 8 a.m. If we can prove she's been accessing your accounts, we'll have enough to get the police to take our side seriously. That night was the longest of my life. Every sound in my apartment complex made me jump. Every car door, every footstep in the hallway, every notification on my phone sent adrenaline shooting through my system. I kept thinking about Sarah having my spare key, about how easily she could have been coming and going from my place for months. I changed all my passwords, enabled two-factor authentication on everything, and moved my dresser in front of my bedroom door. The paranoia felt justified now, but it also felt like I was losing pieces of myself with each security measure. At 3 a.m., I got a call from my landlord. Hey, sorry to wake you, but there's been a noise complaint from your neighbor. She says someone's been pounding on your door for the last hour. I'd been awake the entire time. No one had knocked on my door. Are you sure she meant my apartment? Unit 3B, right? Mrs. Chen was pretty specific. Said it sounded like someone was trying to break in, but when she looked through her peephole, whoever it was had left. Unit 3B was directly across from me. Mrs. Chen would have a clear view of my door. I'll check it out, I said, though the last thing I wanted to do was open my door. I crept to the peephole and peered out. The hallway was empty, but there was something white taped to my door. A note. I called Rebecca immediately. Don't touch it, she said when I described the situation. Take photos of it through your peephole if you can, but don't open your door. I'm calling the police. The police? The same ones who think I'm harassing Sarah. Different division. We're reporting a break-in and intimidation. Someone was at your apartment at 3 a.m., that's not normal family drama anymore. 20 minutes later, 2 officers were in my hallway photographing the note before carefully removing it. Through my peephole, I watched them read it, then exchange glances. One of them knocked. Mr. Davidson. We need to speak with you. Officer Martinez, no relation to my lawyer, was young and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. His partner, Officer Kim, did most of the talking. The note is concerning, Kim said, not letting me read it. It contains specific threats related to your employment situation and mentions your family members by name. What kind of threats? We can't share the exact contents while this is under investigation. But someone clearly wants you to know they have detailed information about your personal life. My blood went cold. Was it signed? Kim shook his head. No signature, but it references your sister and mentions tomorrow's meeting at Riverside Park. Were you planning to attend that meeting? My lawyer advised against it. Good advice. We're going to increase patrols in this area tonight, and we'll have someone at the park tomorrow in case anyone shows up. After they left, Rebecca arrived with coffee and a grim expression. The forensics expert found something, she said without preamble. Your iCloud account shows login activity from an IP address registered to Sarah's home network. Multiple times over the past month, including Tuesday night when those phantom calls allegedly happened. The relief was overwhelming. So we have proof she's been impersonating me. Better than that. She used your account to sign up for a burner phone service Tuesday afternoon. 1 hour before the first harassing call was supposedly made. Rebecca pulled out a thick folder. Your sister created a digital paper trail showing you're unstable and dangerous. But she got sloppy. Every piece of fake evidence is tied back to accounts she accessed illegally. What happens now? Rebecca's smile was razor-sharp. Now we go nuclear. The forensics expert arrived at exactly 8 a.m. with equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Thomas Chen was a soft-spoken man in his 40s who treated my violated digital life like a crime scene, which I suppose it was. Your sister is either very smart or very lucky, he said, connecting cables to my laptop. She covered most of her tracks, but she made one critical error. What error? Rebecca leaned over his shoulder, taking notes. She forgot to log out of your Netflix account on her own device. The viewing history shows someone watching your account from her IP address at the same time you were streaming from here. Creates a clear timeline of unauthorized access. It was such a mundane detail, Sarah binge-watching some crime drama on my account, but it might be the evidence that saved me. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Let me answer this one, Rebecca said, putting it on speaker. Don't say a word. Hello. Is this the attorney? The voice was male, unfamiliar, and angry. You need to call off your client before someone gets hurt. Rebecca's expression sharpened. Who is this? Someone who cares about Sarah Morrison and her children. Your client is a dangerous individual who needs psychiatric help, not legal representation. And how exactly do you know Mr. Davidson? The line went quiet for several seconds. Then, I know enough. Drop this lawsuit or there will be consequences. Click. Thomas looked up from his laptop. Did you get his number? Rebecca was already dialing. I'm having this traced. But more importantly, Sarah just involved a third party in witness intimidation. You think that was her husband? I asked. Doesn't matter who it was. Someone in her circle just made a legally actionable threat against our case. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Sarah's in the hospital. She had a panic attack last night. The doctors are keeping her for observation. What have you done? The room went dead silent. Thomas stopped typing, Rebecca stopped writing, and I felt the world tilt sideways again. She's in the hospital, I said weakly. Mom thinks I caused it. Rebecca grabbed my phone and read the text. When was this sent? Just now. 8:47 a.m. The threatening call was at 8:43. 4 minutes later, your mother gets word that Sarah's hospitalized. Rebecca's voice turned ice cold. This isn't a coincidence. Thomas looked up from his forensics work. There's something else you need to see. Your sister accessed your phone's location services remotely yesterday afternoon. She knew exactly where you were when you met with the police, when you came home, even when you went to your lawyer's office. The violation felt like being stripped naked in public. She's been tracking me. For weeks, according to these logs. She knew your movements better than you did. Rebecca was pacing again, but this time she looked energized rather than frustrated. Don't you see what's happening? Sarah hospitalized herself to create sympathy and make you look like the aggressor. But she timed it perfectly with that threatening phone call, which means she coordinated it. Or she actually had a panic attack because she realized she's about to be exposed, I said. Either way, we're not stopping. Thomas, how long until you can document everything we need? Give me another hour. But you should know, if she had this level of access to your accounts, she could have done much worse damage. The restraint is almost more suspicious than the violations. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She could have transferred money, accessed your medical records, impersonated you to employers across the industry. Instead, she focused specifically on this one job opportunity and creating just enough harassment evidence to make you look unstable. Thomas's expression was troubled. It's like she had a very specific, limited goal. Rebecca stopped pacing. What if destroying the Nexus job wasn't the endgame? What if it was just the setup? Before I could ask what she meant, my phone rang again. This time it was Detective Rodriguez. Mr. Davidson, we need you to come in immediately. There's been a development in the Morrison case. What kind of development? The kind that changes everything. How quickly can you get here? I looked at Rebecca, who was already grabbing her keys. We'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. Bring your lawyer. You're going to need her. The line went dead, and I realized that whatever Sarah had planned, we were about to walk right into the next phase of her trap. The police station felt different this time. More urgent. Detective Rodriguez met us at the front desk with an expression I couldn't read, and she led us to a different room, bigger, with a video camera in the corner that hadn't been there during my first visit. Before we start, she said, settling into her chair across from us, I need to clarify something from your previous statement. You said you called your sister once on Tuesday night, correct? That's right, I said, though my stomach was already sinking. Rodriguez slid a manila folder across the table. These are the complete phone records from both devices. Your sister's phone shows 7 incoming calls from your number between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. But here's what's interesting, your phone shows only 1 outgoing call to her number. Rebecca leaned forward. Meaning someone else made those calls using his account information. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that Mr. Davidson has access to technology that allows him to make calls without them appearing on his device records. Rodriguez's eyes never left my face. Which would suggest a level of premeditation that's concerning. I felt the walls closing in. Detective, my digital forensics expert can prove. We'll get to that, Rodriguez interrupted. First, I need you to explain why your sister's medical records show she's been receiving treatment for anxiety and panic attacks for the past 3 months. Treatment that started right around the time you found out about the Nexus job opportunity. The blood drained from my face. I didn't know she was seeing anyone for anxiety. According to her therapist, she's been expressing fear about your increasingly erratic behavior since early spring. Specifically, your obsession with finally getting ahead and your resentment toward family members who were more successful. Rebecca's hand found my arm under the table, a warning to stay calm. Detective, what exactly is my client being accused of? Initially, nothing. We were treating this as a family dispute that got out of hand. But then we received this. Rodriguez pulled out an evidence bag containing a phone I didn't recognize. This device was found in the dumpster behind your apartment complex this morning. It contains text messages to your sister that are disturbing. She read from a printed sheet, "You think you're so perfect with your perfect life. Watch how fast I can destroy everything you care about. Your kids won't even recognize you when I'm done." My hands started shaking. I never sent that. I've never even seen that phone before. The messages were sent at 2:47 a.m., approximately 1 hour after Mrs. Morrison was admitted to the hospital for her panic attack. Rodriguez consulted her notes. Your apartment's keycard access shows you entering the building at 2:52 a.m. That's impossible. I was home all night. I never left. Rebecca was scribbling furiously on her legal pad. Detective, who found this phone? And how did you know to look for it? Anonymous tip came in this morning. Caller said they saw someone throwing something into the dumpster around 3 a.m. The setup was perfect. Too perfect. Someone had planted evidence in my own building's dumpster, then called in a tip to ensure it would be found. The timing was surgical, right after Sarah was hospitalized, giving her an alibi while making me look like I was escalating. I want to see the security footage from my building, I said. If someone was at that dumpster at 3 a.m., it'll be on camera. Rodriguez and Rebecca exchanged glances. We've already requested it, Rodriguez said. But I have to tell you, Mr. Davidson, things aren't looking good. Your sister is in the hospital, there's physical evidence of threats, and your story keeps changing. My story hasn't changed at all. Yesterday you said you hadn't contacted her. Today we have evidence of multiple calls and text messages. Yesterday you said you were home all evening. Today we have key card records showing you left the building after 2 a.m. Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. Help me understand what's really happening here. Rebecca stood up abruptly. This interview is over. We're not saying another word until we've reviewed all the evidence you're claiming to have. That's your right, Rodriguez said. But Mr. Davidson needs to understand that we're treating this as a criminal matter now. Harassment, stalking, making terroristic threats, these are felony charges. As we walked out of the police station, Rebecca was already on her phone with Thomas, the forensics expert. We need everything documented within the hour. Someone is actively framing our client, and they're not finished yet. I felt like I was drowning in quicksand. Every move I made to prove my innocence seemed to create more evidence of my guilt. Sarah wasn't just destroying my job opportunities anymore, she was building a criminal case that could put me in prison. Rebecca, I said as we reached our cars, what if we can't prove it? What if she's too smart, too careful? Her expression was grim but determined. Then we better hope that security footage shows who really dumped that phone. Because if it doesn't, your sister just won this war. The security footage was a disaster. Thomas had the video files loaded on his laptop when we arrived back at Rebecca's office, his expression telling me everything I needed to know before he even pressed play. The timestamp shows 3:07 a.m., he said, clicking through to the relevant section. There's definitely someone at the dumpster. The grainy black and white footage showed a figure in dark clothing approaching the dumpster area. The person was wearing a hood and kept their face turned away from the camera with suspicious precision. They dropped something into the bin, then walked quickly out of frame. Can you enhance it? Get a clear look at their face. Rebecca leaned over his shoulder, squinting at the screen. I've tried everything. Whoever this is knew exactly where the camera was positioned and how to avoid identification. Thomas rewound the footage. But there's something else. Watch their gait, their body language. He played it again, and my stomach dropped. The figure moved with a familiar confident stride, someone comfortable in their own skin despite being caught on camera committing a crime. That's not me, I said, though doubt was creeping in around the edges of my certainty. I know it's not you, Rebecca said firmly. Because you were inside your apartment at 3:07 a.m. Your internet activity shows you were streaming Netflix continuously from 11 p.m. until 6 a.m. Thomas nodded. The data doesn't lie. Someone else dumped that phone, but they're clearly familiar with your building's layout and security systems. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. The doctors say Sarah's condition is serious. She keeps asking for you. Please come to the hospital. Room 314 at Methodist General. Don't even think about it, Rebecca warned, reading over my shoulder. That's exactly what she wants, you showing up at her hospital room so she can claim you're continuing to harass her. But what if she's actually sick? What if the stress of all this really did trigger something medical? Rebecca's expression softened slightly. Even if that's true, you going there now would be the worst possible thing you could do. Let me call the hospital and verify she's actually admitted. While Rebecca made calls, Thomas continued analyzing the security footage. There's something else bothering me about this, he said, pulling up a different angle. Look at the timestamp on the lobby camera versus the dumpster camera. I looked, but the timestamps looked identical to me. What am I missing? The dumpster camera shows 3:07 a.m., but the lobby camera shows 3:09 a.m. for the same time period. Someone manually adjusted one of these clocks. The implications hit me like a freight train. Someone with access to the building's security system. Exactly. This wasn't a random setup. Whoever did this had inside knowledge of your building's infrastructure. Thomas pulled up another screen. I also found something interesting in your sister's digital footprint. She's been researching private investigation services for the past month. Rebecca hung up her phone with a grim expression. Sarah is definitely at Methodist General, admitted last night for severe anxiety and panic attacks. But here's the interesting part, she specifically requested that the hospital not confirm her location to anyone except immediate family. Why is that interesting? Because she texted your mother with her exact room number. She wants you to know where she is, but she also wants to maintain plausible deniability if you show up. My phone rang. Unknown number again, but this time I recognized the voice immediately. You need to stop this before it's too late. It was Mark, Sarah's husband. His lawyer voice was gone, replaced by something desperate and angry. She's in the hospital because of what you're putting her through. Rebecca grabbed the phone from me. Mr. Morrison, this is Rebecca Martinez, legal counsel for your brother-in-law. Are you calling to discuss settlement terms? I'm calling to tell you that if you don't drop this insane lawsuit, I'll make sure your client spends the next decade in court defending himself against criminal charges. Is that a threat, counselor? It's a promise. Sarah has documentation going back months about his erratic behavior. Witnesses, evidence, medical records showing the psychological damage he's caused. Drop it now, or we bury him. The line went dead, and Rebecca was already taking notes. That was incredibly stupid of him, she said, looking almost pleased. He just admitted they have a coordinated legal strategy and threatened to file false criminal charges. False? How do we know they're false if Sarah's been documenting things for months? Rebecca looked up from her notes with an expression that made my blood run cold. Because if her documentation was real, she wouldn't need to manufacture evidence. The fact that someone planted that phone tells us everything we need to know about the legitimacy of her other claims. My phone buzzed with another text from my mom. Sarah's asking for you. She says she wants to make peace before this goes too far. Please come. Thomas looked up from his computer. Don't go to that hospital. But we need to do something else instead. What? We need to search your apartment again. If someone has been planting evidence at your building, there might be more than just that phone. The thought of finding more planted evidence in my own home made me feel sick, but Rebecca was already gathering her things. Thomas is right. We're going back to your place, and we're tearing it apart before anyone else can. The search of my apartment revealed horrors I never could have imagined. Thomas found the first device within 10 minutes, a tiny recording unit tucked behind my bedroom radiator, so small I would never have noticed it without his specialized equipment. The second was embedded in the base of my kitchen phone charger. By the time we finished sweeping the apartment, we'd found 7 different surveillance devices. Jesus Christ, Rebecca muttered, staring at the collection of bugs laid out on my kitchen table. She's been monitoring everything. Every conversation, every phone call, every private moment for God knows how long. Thomas was analyzing the devices with some kind of scanner. These aren't cheap. Professional-grade equipment, probably cost several $1,000s total. And look at this. He held up one of the units. It has a SIM card. These were transmitting real-time audio to an external location. My hands were shaking as the full scope of the violation sank in. She's been listening to everything. My calls with you, Rebecca. My conversations with employers, with family. She knew exactly what I was planning before I even did it. That's how she stayed ahead of us, Rebecca said grimly. She knew we were coming after her legally before we even filed anything. She's been preparing her defense strategy based on our private discussions. The apartment suddenly felt contaminated, like every surface had been violated. I thought about all the personal conversations I'd had, the moments I'd assumed were private. Sarah had heard everything. My phone rang, and we all stared at it like it was a bomb. Mom's number. Answer it, Rebecca said. But don't mention what we just found. Honey, I just spoke with Sarah's doctor. Her condition is deteriorating. The stress is causing physical symptoms now, elevated heart rate, breathing problems. She keeps saying she's afraid you're going to hurt her children. Mom, I would never. I know you wouldn't intentionally. But she's genuinely terrified. The doctor thinks she might be having some kind of breakdown related to childhood trauma. Childhood trauma. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Sarah had been the golden child, the one who excelled at everything while I struggled. What trauma could she possibly be claiming? What kind of trauma? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. She's telling the doctors about incidents from when you were teenagers. Times when you allegedly threatened her, hurt her. The doctor says suppressed memories sometimes surface during extreme stress. Rebecca was frantically scribbling notes, her expression getting darker by the second. Mom, none of that is true. We barely even fought as kids. That's not how Sarah remembers it. She's telling them about the time you pushed her down the stairs when she was 15. About finding threatening notes in her room. About you killing her pet rabbit when you were angry. The room started spinning. I never did any of those things. Mom, you would have known if I'd hurt her pet. She says she never told us because she was afraid of you. Oh honey, I'm starting to think maybe you both need professional help to work through whatever happened back then. After hanging up, I sank into my kitchen chair feeling utterly defeated. She's rewriting our entire childhood now. Making me into some kind of abusive monster. Rebecca was pacing again, but her energy felt different, focused and dangerous. She made a mistake, she said finally. A big one. What mistake? She's got my own mother believing I was abusing her as a teenager. She's claiming suppressed memories of childhood abuse that supposedly just surfaced under stress. But we have recordings from her surveillance devices of her planning this entire operation. Rebecca's smile was razor-sharp. You can't have suppressed traumatic memories about someone while simultaneously conducting a calculated psychological warfare campaign against them. Thomas looked up from his computer. There's something else. These devices. They've been active for 4 months. The audio logs show her discussing strategy, practicing what she'd tell police, even rehearsing her panic attacks. Rehearsing panic attacks. Listen to this. He played a scratchy audio file through his laptop speakers. Sarah's voice filled my kitchen, but she sounded completely different, calm, controlled, almost businesslike. Okay, so when they ask about the timeline, I need to remember to mention the escalation pattern. Start with small incidents in March, build up to the job thing in May. And if they press charges, I go to the hospital. Make it look like the stress is killing me. Another voice responded, Mark, her husband, what about the childhood stuff? That's the nuclear option. If the surveillance evidence gets thrown out or if his lawyer gets too close to the truth, I start remembering repressed trauma. Who's going to question an abuse victim having a breakdown? The recording continued for several more minutes, laying out their strategy in horrifying detail. They'd planned everything, the false police reports, the planted evidence, even her hospitalization. Rebecca was already on her phone. Detective Rodriguez? We need to meet immediately. We have evidence that's going to change everything. As she scheduled our meeting, I stared at the pile of surveillance devices on my table. Sarah hadn't just been trying to destroy my career, she'd been studying me like a lab rat, learning my patterns, my weaknesses, my responses. The scope of her obsession was terrifying. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something other than fear and helplessness. I felt anger. Pure, righteous fury that she'd stolen months of my privacy, manipulated my family, and nearly destroyed my future based on nothing more than jealousy and spite. Rebecca hung up her phone and fixed me with a determined stare. Get ready, she said. We're about to turn this war around. The meeting with Detective Rodriguez was scheduled for 4 p.m., but at 3:30, everything went sideways again. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize, but when I answered, the voice was familiar, Dr. Patricia Morrison, my former therapist. I'm calling because I received a very disturbing visit today, she said without preamble. A woman claiming to be your sister came to my office with what she said was a court order requiring me to release your therapy records. My blood turned to ice. Please tell me you didn't. Of course I didn't release anything. But the document looked legitimate, and she knew details about our sessions that she shouldn't have known. Things we discussed about your father's death, your employment struggles, even specific coping mechanisms we worked on. Rebecca grabbed my arm, pointing at the surveillance devices still spread across my kitchen table. Sarah had been listening to my therapy check-ins, the calls where Dr. Morrison and I had discussed my progress over the past year. Dr. Morrison, can you describe this woman? Mid-30s, blonde hair, very professional demeanor. She said she was concerned about your mental state and that you've been making threats against her children. She seemed genuinely frightened. That was my sister, but she's been illegally surveillance on me for months. Nothing she told you was legitimate. There was a long pause. That's very concerning. She also asked specific questions about your anger management techniques and whether I thought you were capable of violence. Rebecca took the phone from me. Dr. Morrison, this is Rebecca Martinez, legal counsel. We need you to document everything about that visit. What time she arrived, exactly what she said, what questions she asked. This woman is building a false case against our client. After we hung up, Thomas looked up from his laptop with a grim expression. There's more bad news. I've been analyzing the audio logs from the surveillance devices, and someone else has been accessing them remotely. What do you mean? The devices transmitted to Sarah's phone, but there are also login records from IP addresses I can't trace. Professional-grade VPNs, the kind law enforcement uses. Either she hired a private investigator, or... He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air like poison. Someone with professional surveillance capabilities had been helping Sarah build her case against me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, check your email. Now. I opened my laptop, and there it was, an email from a Proton Mail account with no identifying information. The subject line read, Final Warning. The email contained a single attachment, a PDF document that looked like a psychiatric evaluation. My name was at the top, along with a diagnosis I'd never heard of and recommendations for immediate intervention due to escalating violent ideation. This is fake, I said, scrolling through pages of fabricated psychological assessment. I've never seen this doctor, never had this evaluation. Rebecca read over my shoulder, her face growing paler with each page. This isn't just fake, it's sophisticated. Professional letterhead, realistic medical terminology, even a bogus license number that might pass casual verification. Thomas was already running searches on his computer. The doctor listed doesn't exist. The clinic address is a vacant office building. But someone put serious effort into making this look legitimate. Why are they sending it to me? Because they want you to know how thorough their frame job is, Rebecca said grimly. This is psychological warfare. They're showing you that they can create any evidence they need to destroy you. My phone rang. Detective Rodriguez. Mr. Davidson, we need to postpone our meeting. There's been another development. What kind of development? The kind that requires us to issue a warrant for your arrest. You need to turn yourself in within the next 4 hours. The words hit me like a physical blow. For what? Aggravated stalking, electronic harassment, and violation of a restraining order that was issued this morning. What restraining order? I was never served with anything. According to our records, you were served at 2 p.m. today. The delivery confirmation shows your signature. I looked at Rebecca, who was already shaking her head. Detective, my client has been in my office since noon. He hasn't been served with any legal documents. Then someone forged his signature on a legal document, which is another felony. Either way, he needs to come in. After Rodriguez hung up, the three of us sat in stunned silence. The frame job wasn't just sophisticated, it was accelerating beyond anything we could have anticipated. They're not just trying to destroy your career anymore, Rebecca said finally. They're trying to put you in prison. How is this possible? How can someone just create fake legal documents and psychiatric evaluations? Thomas closed his laptop with a sharp snap. Because someone with serious resources is helping your sister. This isn't just family drama anymore, this is organized, professional, and expensive. My phone buzzed with another text from my mom, the police are looking for you. Please call me before you do something you'll regret. Even my own mother thought I was running from the law. Rebecca stood up, her expression shifting into full attorney mode. We're not waiting 4 hours. We're going to the police station now, with all our evidence, and we're ending this today. As we gathered the surveillance devices and Thomas's analysis, I realized that Sarah's war against me had evolved into something far more dangerous than job sabotage. She wasn't just trying to ruin my career anymore. She was trying to erase my entire existence. The police station parking lot felt like a gauntlet as we walked toward the entrance, Thomas carrying a briefcase full of evidence while Rebecca flanked me like a bodyguard. I kept expecting officers to emerge and slap handcuffs on me before we even made it inside. Detective Rodriguez met us at the front desk, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Davidson, you're cutting it close on that 4-hour deadline." "We have evidence that changes everything," Rebecca said, hefting her own case of documents. "My client is the victim here, not the perpetrator." Rodriguez led us to the same conference room as before, but this time there were 2 other people waiting, a man in an expensive suit who could only be Mark Morrison, and a woman with a recorder who introduced herself as Assistant District Attorney Patricia Chen. "Before we begin," the ADA said, "I need to inform you that we're considering filing multiple felony charges based on the evidence we've received. This meeting is your opportunity to provide context, but anything you say can be used against you." Mark Morrison was staring at me with undisguised hatred. Up close, he looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. But there was something else in his expression, something that looked almost like guilt. Rebecca spread our evidence across the table systematically. The surveillance devices, Thomas's digital forensics report, the audio recordings of Sarah planning her campaign against me. "Your victim is the perpetrator," she announced. "And we can prove it." The ADA examined the listening devices with growing interest while Detective Rodriguez read through Thomas's technical analysis. Mark Morrison's face was getting paler by the minute. "These recordings," Rodriguez said, holding up Thomas's printed transcripts, "if they're authentic, they show premeditation and conspiracy." "They're authentic," Thomas said, pulling out his laptop. "I can demonstrate the chain of custody and verification process." Mark Morrison finally spoke up. "Those devices could have been planted by your client to frame my wife. She's in the hospital because of the stress he's causing." "Then explain this," Rebecca said, sliding a photograph across the table. It showed one of the surveillance devices still embedded in my kitchen phone charger, with a clear timestamp from this morning. "Your wife has been conducting illegal surveillance on my client for 4 months." The ADA was taking rapid notes. "Mr. Morrison, did you have any knowledge of surveillance equipment being placed in your brother-in-law's residence?" "I invoke attorney-client privilege," Mark said quickly. "That's not how privilege works when you're potentially complicit in a crime," the ADA responded sharply. Thomas opened his laptop and played one of the audio recordings. Sarah's voice filled the room, calm and calculating as she discussed her strategy with Mark. The ADA's pen stopped moving entirely as she listened to them plan the false police reports, the planted evidence, even Sarah's hospital visit. "This recording was made 3 days ago," Thomas said when it finished. "Before Mrs. Morrison was allegedly having panic attacks about her brother's behavior." Detective Rodriguez was studying the restraining order paperwork. "Mr. Davidson, you said you were never served with this order." "I've been in my lawyer's office since noon. Before that, I was in my apartment with 2 witnesses." Rodriguez compared signatures on different documents. "The signature on the service confirmation doesn't match any of your other signatures on file." Mark Morrison stood up abruptly. "I need to speak with my wife before this goes any further." "Your wife is allegedly hospitalized for severe anxiety," the ADA said. "Are you saying she's well enough to strategize about legal proceedings?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Mark's face had gone completely white, and I realized he was trapped between protecting Sarah and avoiding criminal charges himself. "I think," Rebecca said quietly, "we need to verify whether Mrs. Morrison is actually incapacitated, or if her hospitalization is as manufactured as everything else she's done." Rodriguez was already reaching for her phone. "I'll call Methodist General right now." As she dialed, Mark Morrison sank back into his chair, and I saw something crack in his composure. Whatever Sarah had dragged him into, he was finally realizing the full scope of the legal disaster they'd created. The noose was tightening, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah still had one more card to play. The call to Methodist General lasted exactly 43 seconds, and I watched Detective Rodriguez's expression change 3 times during those 43 seconds. First confusion, then anger, then something that looked like professional embarrassment. "Mrs. Morrison was discharged this morning at 11 a.m., she announced, hanging up the phone. "Against medical advice." The attending physician noted that her vital signs were normal and her distress appeared to be situational rather than medical. Mark Morrison's face crumpled completely. "She told me she was staying another night for observation." "Where is your wife now, Mr. Morrison?" the ADA asked, her voice taking on a prosecutorial edge. I don't know. She said she was going to her sister's house in Richmond to recover." Rebecca leaned forward. "What's her sister's name and address?" Mark hesitated just long enough for everyone in the room to notice. "Jennifer Walsh. But I don't have the address memorized." Thomas looked up from his laptop with an expression that made my stomach drop. "I've been monitoring the audio feeds from the surveillance devices remotely. Someone activated them again 20 minutes ago." "What does that mean?" Detective Rodriguez asked. "It means Mrs. Morrison isn't in Richmond recovering. She's close enough to my client's apartment to access the listening devices wirelessly." Thomas pulled up a technical readout on his screen. "The signal strength suggests she's within a quarter-mile radius." The ADA stood up sharply. "Detective Rodriguez, we need units at Mr. Davidson's building immediately. If she's violating the surveillance laws in real time while we're sitting here." My phone buzzed with a text message, and everyone in the room went silent. "Unknown number, you think you're so smart with your lawyers and your evidence. But you forgot about Emma and Jake." "Emma and Jake. Sarah's kids. My niece and nephew." Mark Morrison went completely white. "Those are my children. Where are my children supposed to be right now?" Another text arrived before he could finish. "They're safe. For now. Drop everything and walk away, or find out what real consequences look like." Detective Rodriguez was already on her radio calling for backup units and a bolo alert. The ADA grabbed her phone to coordinate with other departments. But Mark Morrison was staring at his own phone with growing panic. "She's not answering. Sarah's not answering her phone." His hands were shaking as he scrolled through his contacts. "The kids should be at after-school care until 6 p.m., but what if she picked them up early?" Rebecca grabbed my arm. "Do not respond to those texts. Do not engage with her at all." But my phone was ringing now. Sarah's number. Answer it, Detective Rodriguez commanded. Put it on speaker. Everyone stay quiet. I hit accept with trembling fingers. Hello, little brother. Sarah's voice was completely different now, not sweet, not scared, not manipulative. Just cold and matter of fact. I assume you're sitting in some conference room right now feeling very proud of yourself. Sarah, where are the kids? They're having an adventure. Uncle's going to learn what it feels like to have people you love in danger. Mark Morrison lurched forward. Sarah, please. Whatever you're doing, don't involve Emma and Jake. They're innocent. Innocent? Sarah laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Nothing in this family is innocent anymore. You all chose sides. You all decided I was the villain. The ADA was furiously writing notes and making hand signals to Rodriguez, who was coordinating multiple phone calls simultaneously. What do you want? I asked, though I already knew the answer would destroy me. I want you to confess. Publicly. To everything. The harassment, the threats, the mental instability. I want you to admit that you made it all up because you couldn't handle losing your precious job. And if I do that, then maybe Emma and Jake get to go home tonight instead of learning what real family loyalty means. The line went dead, and the room erupted into controlled chaos. Detective Rodriguez was dispatching units to the elementary school, Mark Morrison was calling every family member and friend who might know where Sarah would take the kids, and the ADA was talking rapidly to someone about kidnapping charges and Amber Alerts. But all I could think about was Emma, age 7, who still believed her uncle was a superhero. And Jake, age 5, who always begged me to push him higher on the swings when we went to the park. Sarah hadn't just declared war on me anymore. She'd declared war on everyone. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected source. Wait, Mark said suddenly, looking up from his frantic phone calls. I know where she is. Detective Rodriguez stopped mid-sentence in her radio communication. Where? The old cabin. Her grandfather's place up in Millbrook. She's been taking the kids there on weekends, said it was family bonding time. Mark was already grabbing his keys. It's about 40 minutes north, but there's only one road in and out. The ADA nodded grimly. Perfect place for a standoff. Within minutes, we were caravanning north, police units, Rebecca and me in her car, Mark following behind despite Rodriguez's protests that he should stay back. The drive felt eternal, every mile stretching like an hour as I imagined what Sarah might be telling Emma and Jake about their uncle who was supposedly dangerous. My phone buzzed with updates. The kids think we're having a surprise camping trip. But surprises can turn scary very quickly. Then, you have 1 hour to get here alone, or I start teaching them the truth about their uncle. Rebecca was on the phone with someone coordinating the police response. No direct approach, I heard her saying. Hostage negotiator, establish perimeter, treat this as an active kidnapping situation. But as we pulled up the narrow dirt road toward the cabin, I could see Sarah had chosen her location perfectly. The cabin sat on a hill with clear sightlines in every direction. She'd see the police coming from miles away. The lead officer, Sergeant Williams, was setting up a command post when my phone rang again. I can see the lights, Sarah said, her voice eerily calm. Lot of fuss for a family conversation. Send him up alone, or this gets much worse for everyone. Through binoculars, I could see movement in the cabin's windows. Small figures that had to be Emma and Jake. I'm going up there, I told Sergeant Williams. Absolutely not. We don't negotiate with kidnappers. But Mark Morrison grabbed my arm. She's past rational thinking. If she feels cornered. He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. That's when Thomas, who'd been quietly working on his laptop in one of the police vehicles, called everyone over. The surveillance devices in your apartment are still active, he said. But more importantly, I've been tracking her phone's GPS. She's been at this cabin since early this morning, which means she planned this before the hospital discharge, before our meeting, probably before she even sent those threatening texts. The ADA leaned over his shoulder. What are you saying? I'm saying this isn't a desperate last resort. This is another calculated move in her campaign. She's documenting everything, probably recording the police response to make herself look like a victim of police harassment. Sergeant Williams cursed under his breath. So if we storm the cabin, she has hours of audio of you planning it, making her look like the mother protecting her children from an unstable brother and an overzealous police force. My phone buzzed, time's up. I'm bringing the kids outside so everyone can see how scared they are of their uncle. Through the binoculars, I watched Sarah emerge from the cabin holding Emma's hand, with little Jake clinging to her leg. Even from a distance, I could see both children were crying. I'm ending this, I said, standing up and pulling off the tactical vest someone had strapped on me. You're not going up there alone, Rebecca said firmly. Yes, I am. Because Sarah's right about one thing, this is between us. But as I started walking up the hill toward the cabin, I wasn't going to confront my sister. I was going to save my family. The walk up that hill was the longest 200 yards of my life. I could hear Sarah talking to the kids, her voice carrying on the evening air, but I couldn't make out the words. Emma and Jake were sitting on the cabin's front steps now, both clutching stuffed animals. When I got close enough to see their faces clearly, my heart broke. They looked terrified and confused, not understanding why their mother was crying or why there were police cars with flashing lights in the distance. Uncle. Emma called out when she saw me, starting to get up, but Sarah pulled her back down. Stay here, sweetheart, Sarah said, her voice gentle with the children but her eyes locked on me with pure hatred. Uncle and I need to talk. Sarah, I said, stopping about 10 feet away, this ends now. Let them go back to their father. After you confess. After you tell everyone the truth about what you've been doing to our family. Jake was looking between us with wide, scared eyes. Mommy, why is everyone crying? And that's when I realized something that changed everything. Emma, Jake, I said, crouching down to their eye level, do you remember the camping trips we used to take? The ones where we told stories around the campfire. They both nodded, Emma wiping her nose on her sleeve. Well, your mom has been telling a really elaborate story for the past few months. About me being a bad person who did mean things. But sometimes grown-ups tell stories that aren't true when they're feeling sad or scared. That's enough, Sarah snapped, but I kept talking to the kids. The police have recordings of your mom practicing her story, like an actress rehearsing for a play. And sometimes when people feel jealous or hurt, they make up stories to try to make themselves feel better. Emma, who was always the smart one, tilted her head. Like when Jake said I broke his toy but really he broke it himself. Exactly like that. Sarah's composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand what you cost me. Watching you fail for years while I had to be perfect, had to be the responsible one, had to clean up everyone's messes. And then suddenly you get the dream job, the perfect opportunity, and everyone acts like you finally made it. The truth came pouring out in front of her children, in front of the police recording everything from below. I deserved that life. I deserved the success and the recognition and the fresh start. Not you. Never you. So you decided to destroy it. I decided to show everyone who you really are. Weak, unstable, someone who crumbles under pressure. She gestured toward the police cars. And look how perfectly that worked. But Emma was looking up at her mother with growing confusion. Mommy, you said Uncle was the one who was lying. The 10-year-old's simple question cut through all of Sarah's elaborate manipulation in a way that months of evidence and legal maneuvering couldn't. Sarah looked down at her daughter, then at Jake, then at me, and I watched her realize what she'd done. She'd turned her children into weapons in her war against me, and now they were seeing her for what she really was. Take them home, Mark, she called down the hill, her voice suddenly small and defeated. The resolution came swiftly after that. Sarah surrendered without further incident, the children were reunited with their father, and the evidence we'd gathered ensured she faced serious consequences for the surveillance, fraud, and kidnapping charges. But 6 months later, sitting in my new office at a tech company that hired me despite the temporary chaos in my background, I realized the real victory wasn't legal. It was that Emma and Jake still called me uncle, still trusted me, still wanted me to push them on the swings at the park. Sarah had tried to destroy everything I cared about. Instead, she destroyed only herself.